I'm Stefan Baumann. I would like to invite you on a special journey to discover the splendor, encounter the grandeur, feel the excitement. Come along with me as we experience the thrill of painting outdoors. A 3-day journey that will change your art forever. In one of America's most stunning locations, Mount Shasta. Everything you need to know is on our website, www.stefanbaumann.com. This here is my second favorite. The new system that they have with these is that now they have these separate shelves that sit on here. And today, Brad had for the Strata, he actually has a secondary shelf that fits underneath. And I was like, that's really cool. It just sits on the
Would that fit on a Strata easel?
Let's see how that works.
Yeah, well, this is a Strata easel too.
Oh,
Okay,
This is not their carbon one.
yeah. But
I highly recommend the carbon one, but this is all of Strata. You know, the biggest, when we did the television show, we spent thousands for the camera, but we spent more for the tripod. And, you know, like you leave, who's are you? You had that shitty tripod yesterday. If you're gonna spend money, tripod. That's where you want to spend the money. You can use any kind of other box. Like I hate Gorilla boxes, and they're well made and all this. They're kind of a little ugly, but they're well made and stuff. But the thing is, most of the boxes have this huge box on top, and you try to put a big box on a tripod, and it's top heavy. And you put an umbrella in with that, and you're just. And then those big boxes, you know, because I know women, they get a little extra space in their box, they've got to put something in it. So they like have everything in it, and they, you know, put it up on top. I don't know. Guys are just as bad, because Alex has brought everything with him too. But I'm just referring to women right now because your box was so heavy. So anyway, so you have this big Gorilla box, and you set it on top of your easel. And you almost like need a gorilla to put it up there. And then by the time you try to fiddle with it, you're exhausted, right? So I was kind of fighting this system, but then all of a sudden I saw this Sienna one, and I was like, oh baby, that is sweet. And so this one opens up in here, and you have a tray here, and you can put your paints inside of this. Okay, and then this thing is separate. Okay, and so this, so that's separate, and that's attached. And what's the great thing about this, that I have started to choose this over everything else, even over the Strata, although Strata is now making one of these, is that when you have your paint box here, and the lid, your palette here, it's like,
yeah.
you know, you don't have a lot of room in there, so that clamshell really makes it hard when the palette is down here to work with it. So this being separate, I can come up with my brush strokes, and I've got a lot of room. So it provides a little bit more space. Yes?
Will those pieces fit in the backpack?
No, they don't.
Okay.
They could. I haven't tried it yet.
Okay.
but they could. But before, what I was doing is I was always using these bags. And the reason why I like these bags, again, it's like electrician bags. And these things all fit inside of here, and they have a strap. But I wouldn't walk around Florence with this, because predominantly I'd have to sell this to kind of take it off and carry it. It's just bulky. When you're shopping in those expensive stores, you kind of get things. So, and what's nice about this is that you can set that up nice and straight up and down, and you can kind of look at your object, and you don't have all that crap underneath. And it does hold actually a much larger canvas than you can off of those little ones.
And that unscrews, right? It's not permanently attached.
No,
to the
this
tripod?
is just like, the same system that you have with
box.
the quick release. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. But the tripod again is the Strata. Yeah, and people go, well, why do you push Strata? I don't push that. It's just someplace I know you get really good quality painting tripods, because otherwise anything else is crap. And they have these nice ball things, not the sticks that you have to.
Stefan, these are called oboes, they're not called stratas.
Oh, but they sell them there, yeah.
But
So,
they have a different, if they go looking for a strata easel, they may have a hard time finding it.
No,
Yeah,
that's
no,
what-
you have to go to the
if
Strata
you go to
website.
Strata Easel, that's what comes up.
Oh, okay.
yeah. So anyway, so he does a wonderful job with all that stuff. But I don't make anything off of it or get anything free or anything. I'm just trying to say, hey, after all the years that I've been out there doing stuff, I have so many boxes in my basement. Yeah, especially I use them for like, here, try this, look at this, try this. So anyway, any questions about supplies?
So one thing about the easels, somebody told me they gotta have a wind hook or a hook on the bottom of the, thing.
Yeah,
So when the wind comes up, it doesn't blow your whole easel over. You can put some weight on the bottom of it.
Yeah, so these have the hook at the bottom. I usually put my garbage can on it, because but you could probably easily put
There you go.
this,
and then it would weigh it down.
and that would weigh it down, and you could still keep it open to get to it.
Yeah.
That's what I thought we did.
So if you did that here, that would weigh it down. There's a lot of people making boxes now. And so you just kind of have to figure out how much you want to pay. But really all you need is something to hold your painting and something to mix your paints on. I have been waiting for somebody to come out with a nice backpack, which hardware store has. Because that really is practical. When you're walking around Florence, you have to be able to move and carry, and you can't have anything that's flopping around or anything like that because it gets tired. So you can't fight it. So some of you are not organized to paint outdoors. Now you don't have any easel and stuff, and that's your choice. But if you don't have a good system, if you're painting on your lap, if you don't have a tripod, if you don't have a good tripod, if you don't have a good box, if you don't have, the experience of painting outdoors is not fun. You have to compete with so many things on top of just learning how to paint. And the box system, the carry system, all that stuff just really weights you down. And you kind of think about, oh God, it's so hard to go out because all this stuff you have to kind of remember. So you kind of have to lighten up, you have to thin up, take your paints down to a minimum, to really kind of assess what you have. And it was really good that we went down into the canyon today.
That was great.
Yeah, it was beautiful, but you could kind of see coming back out of that canyon, you don't need all that stuff. So when you're going to Europe, all you really need to do is just have your paints in a bag like this, lay it out in front, make sure your bottles are open. Nobody who went to Europe this year to Florence for our trip had any issues. Yeah.
There's a little printout, like a half-page thing you can print out and put in that bag, and it explains how the TSA requires flammable liquids to have a flash point of something or other, and how this is based on vegetable oil, therefore it complies. It links to it references their code, and it places put your phone number on in case you talk to it.
I could just see that TA agent pointing at his glasses going,
Oh,
let me go look that link up somewhere.
That's just reference.
Hold on, Fred, hold that plane. I gotta go check to see if this website's legit. So I think most of those guys are educated now with art supplies when they pop up, and you're being honest with it, they're not gonna mess with it. The problem is that, we have our horizon.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're here somewhere, because you're up higher. And we want the illusion of looking down and looking up. And so here, we've gotta kind of pay attention that when we're actually looking across at something that wall's pretty straight, as we're looking down, we'd actually see more of the tops of the rocks.
Yeah.
And it's really important to kind of put those in because you're looking down on them. And looking up, you're actually putting the bottom of the rocks, so these rocks sticking out. So you feel like you're looking up. So some of it is perspective. And also, if your horizon line is down here, and your horizon line is where your eye level line is, where you're standing. If you're kneeling, it's lower. If you're standing, it's higher. Then everything in here actually would have perspective to it. A lot of times when you're doing those brick walls up close, there's perspective. You don't know it, but those lines that would appear normally straight across and make all that actually come more down at an angle. And so if you have a lot of those stratus lines going through your rock, those, as they get further up, actually become more of an angle and they become kind of a compositional thing. A lot of people don't think about that when they paint that. And the same thing down below, those lines actually start pointing upward. So it's almost like having a building out there.
So where's the eye level on that?
Where's the horizon on that?
I want to say at like top of the cave mouth. That's where I would look, because you could not see above where the waterfall breaks, and the leaves. Like you could only see the leaves. You couldn't see like the tops of those rocks, and
Yeah.
I realized that I was doing the tops of those rocks a bit too late. I
So
know how
one
to
thing
fix
that
it.
if we're actually looking at that fall, kind of think about the experience.
Yeah.
Now that's kind of why we go out there and paint, is the experience of being out there. And when you're out there, you're impressed with this waterfall that's kind of coming at you. So, I think here, I feel like I'm so high up here that you're trying to give me the experience above the falls.
Yeah.
And I don't think compositionally that it really recreated the moment. It's like if we were dealing with this, then we'd be focusing more below.
Mhm.
But your painting is kind of cut in half in an odd way. And I'm not really understanding this. It's really kind of really complicated. And I don't think while I was standing there, I was like, oh, look at all the stuff above the waterfall. And yet, in the middle third, you're almost forcing us to do that. So I think compositionally, it's kind of a little, a lot of times you can fix something like this by just cutting the top off and making it into a different size. This one gives us more of the feeling of being, so like when we're talking about a horizon line, that's our eye level line. And if we're kind of going about the way things work, is that our eye level line pretty much will always be like in the middle of the painting. That's just kind of how things are. So the horizon line actually should always be like in the middle. And that's where your painting went wrong, because your horizon line ended up being so low that the viewer's trying to figure out where they are in the painting. But when we're looking at this, your horizon line is like somewhere in here. And we're looking up at the falls and down. Now, your mother told you should never put anything dead center in the painting. And so oftentimes people will move the horizon line down to the bottom third or up, or variations of that. But the whole thing is that the whole world is based around where you're at. That's why it's very important to know where the horizon line is. And I can't tell you how many artists I've met that have come from the Students' Art League in New York, and I'm coaching them. I go, where's the horizon line? They go, oh, where the sky meets the mountains.
If you're in here, where there is no sky.
And my 12 things that are important to be a painter, horizon's on my list.
Oh, that's good.
So who's this? You're so readable. When you're happy, you're like,
Oh, okay.
when he's not, he's like,
Yeah.
I never have to guess with you, but when I looked at you, you were like, so you have real, so here we have the horizon line, beautiful rocks. It's hard to do a wall of rocks like that. But I think you did a beautiful job, but where's your central focal point?
I meant it to be the top of the waterfall, right where it's
Curving?
with the stones.
Yeah, but see, we don't quite get that because as it falls, it's all kind of the same color, and then we come back in here, and we're kind of darting back and forth. So water, as it goes into shadow, and especially when water goes into vertical, Verticals receive light different than horizontals. So you could have this horizontal water coming down. You highlight that, and as it goes vertical, you can kind of knock it down some in some shadow. And then also around wet rock looks really good, really dark. And so if you put really black rock around that, it really pushes the waterfall out. And it allows you to actually make the waterfall a little darker in shadow and still have the feeling of the waterfall. Great foreground. The problem is that your background here is darker in value than your foreground. And so the foreground needs to be beefed up, pure. The foreground's a little chalky. When things are chalky, it's because your highlights are cool and your shadows are cool. So you need to warm up these shadows in here.
Paul painted that.
Paul painted that. So,
Perfect.
yeah, what were you thinking?
I was thinking that where the water came out from the rock at the very top, just below that sort of golden splat of leaves was pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I could try and do some checkering.
So what?
Checkering.
What's checkering?
It's a trick.
You have to look. There's a video that I have on my list if you watch my YouTubes. And it's called How to Improve Your Painting or Your Money Back. But you don't get money back because you don't pay for YouTube videos. So that was a safe statement. But it will improve your painting, and so it's checkering. So that gives you something to look. But basically, it's kind of a complicated thing, but you can watch the video. But basically, it's like putting light that gets dark, darker than light, light and dark, and back and forth. And it's like a checkerboard. Okay. So, but the big thing that he did in here is that for the first time I've seen him actually paint with a large brush. And did you stay with that brush all the way through?
No.
No, he did not. I caught him. He did not.
About 3/4 was big brush, and then I switched to get some small bits, and then there's a palette knife phase as well.
But see, this painting is really interesting to look at with all the different varieties of brush strokes and stuff. How did you like working with the large brush?
Well, I hated it, but it got the job done. But let me cover the canvas really quickly.
Good.
And move on to my favorite.
You painted
Rock
just
color.
the middle of the rock. Well, the thing is, you were painting just this section of rock. So a good painting has a foreground, middle ground, background. Now Paul's painting had no foreground. I let it slide because I was like, oh, good, he's got big brush strokes. But the thing is, the same problem with this is love you, Paul. But the thing is, you want to have a good foreground. So we saw in Joe's painting and some of the other paintings, you can see the water, splashing. So like you say, well, how do you get depth in a painting? Well, you have to have a foreground. This one is kind of wishy-washy, but if we get a little bit more foreground and darker, that gives more scale. But when you're just taking this section, you're not going to get a lot of variety. You're not going to get depth because you're looking at a wall that's 40 feet away from you that's just flat. The only way you're going to get depth is to show more above and below.
Okay.
So you're just kind of focus in too much. So a good painting has a foreground, middle ground, background.
Okay.
And so the foreground should be like a sense of place. So that the viewer says, I'm on a pathway walking down through the waterfall. So you're trying to recreate. Remember when we walked down there and by the time we got down there, it was like, oh, wow. And, then Mother Nature said, come here. And before you know it, you walk down and you go, oh, you can walk around the waterfall. And you can kind of get inside of it and go in the back. It says, come with me. It's like a sign. Come with me. The only person who really went all the way was Bradley, and he was way over on the other side. So who's this?
I think no, it's not.
They want to be mine.
Okay. Yeah. So Bradley was on the other side, and here what we have is we have the rocks, we have the wall, the reflection. We have a good foreground.
Yeah.
So when you have a good foreground, all of a sudden there's a sense of place. And all of a sudden you can kind of start making out what this all is. But if you don't have this foreground in here and just have the wall, there's no relationship. So you don't really know what the painting is. You're kind of like hovering over it like a drone. So you need a foreground, middle ground, background. You'll see that the old masters' paintings all have, Hudson River School painters and sergeants and stuff. There was a sergeant would paint a boat, and you'd see the front end of the boat, so that the viewer wasn't swimming in the canal. Okay.
I love his temperatures in that.
Yeah.
Because I learned a new trick.
Yeah.
I learned it well.
He learns tricks well. I find that if you bait him
Right, that's
with
great.
treats,
Yeah, I did. It's really good.
It was the
Josh.
wash, I'm telling you. The wash that I was telling you about.
Your painting.
okay, so whose is this?
That's right.
That's John's.
John's. Okay, so here again too, that our horizon is like literally right there, and it wasn't quite that experience of looking up. So you want to make sure that, you know, this is smack dab in the middle. Our experience was that we, even though you were kind of middle, the waterfall was kind of coming above you. So your horizon line isn't set right. This should have been moved up somewhere. And in this particular instance, because you were talking about having the sweet spot, you know, the third, the square, and you would put like, so you'd have a center square, 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 and you would have one of those squares being the central focal point. And I said, for the most part, just two little bottom squares would be your central focal point. This would be where you'd have one of the upper squares as central
Oh,
focal
okay.
point.
Yeah.
And you would move it up so that you would use that corner right-hand square for that light, because obviously that's where his central focal point is. And look at that illuminating, beautiful light.
Yeah.
The only thing that's missing on this is just more time. Yes.
You misinterpreted what I said, I think. I was taught previously that the focal points would be at the junction of the lines, not in the
The
squares.
exact corner.
That's what I said.
No, you said in the squares.
No, 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 the junction.
Okay.
Let's get this straight.
Yes, sir.
Anything I hate is more than something that's not straight. So, anybody have a marker or a pen?
I have a marker.
Chris does.
She's got a sharper, that's okay.
Hey.
Yeah! That doesn't happen much on the klutz. Okay, so let's just say here,
Close.
close.
Measure it.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put it off center just for you. Look at that.
Okay, so anyway, we're just getting the gist of the idea. That's what you're saying,
Yes.
okay.
Forgot it.
So, the center focal point should be within the middle third. But predominantly, it's best if it's here, here,
Right, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
here.
Okay.
That's kind of what you're shooting for,
Yes.
okay? It
And
doesn't
you're
always matter.
saying,
Now, if you're doing the golden mean, if you do the golden mean correctly, these lines are actually a lot tighter.
What do you mean tighter?
Well, if you do 1.1168,
I have to measure.
618.
6
You gotta watch
yeah.
that video.
And you repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. There's a YouTube video on that also.
Yeah.
Quebec is very
So,
good. One
it's
is on
only
the golden mean, it's got a couple.
1.618 is the golden mean. And so if you take the height of this and multiply it by 1.618, you actually get this line here. Okay.
Okay.
And that line
Tighter.
is the golden mean, it's just a little
Okay.
tighter.
Okay.
And it'd be a little bit tighter here,
Okay.
okay? So if you watch my video on golden mean, you can figure out how to do that. And so these would actually be more in here,
In there.
okay? So it brings
Which
it in a
is
little bit
within the
closer.
square, which is what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's somewhere within the center, because if I'm looking at you, you're pretty much in my view. So having stuff off this way is really weird. Yeah, because you're not, I'm not looking at Paul talking to you. It's like, it's like, if I want to talk to Paul, I look at Paul.
So you're saying within the center square.
Somewhere in here is where your central focal point is. You're not always in charge of that.
Okay.
Where is it in the goat picture behind you?
What, the center focal point?
Yeah,
Where do you think the center focal point is?
I'm asking you. I don't know. Right around the bottom left-hand leg of the left section of the of the sheep. Bottom left, bottom left, bottom left. Yeah, but no, not there. Front feet,
The
There.
gal, the gal.
right around there. That's one of them.
Well,
This
this,
is a big sheep.
I think it's the
this,
shoulder
well,
of
the thing is, first thing, it's a sheep because they all have eyes. So, this painting, if you notice how carefully, every one of these eyeballs are actually there. And it isn't until I actually nail that, because that's actually what people are gonna be looking at. But basically, the whole idea is that the painting actually kind of rests in here.
in there.
Okay, that's kind of where I
So
was.
that's kind of the energy of the light, kind of comes in here, her looking back at them, they're looking back, you have this play going back and forth. So, and then you see these lines here, these are eye magnets. These are purposely lined up to go into this. And these lines all up in here are all designed to actually, remember I told you how I do things in a spiral?
Mm-hmm.
So all these lines are actually lined up this way. These lines are all lined up this way. You know, there's even like a little feeling of clouds going through this way. When I design things, I actually put a big spiral in there and then I start placing things in the spiral. And this here all falls into spiral stuff. If you notice, this is pointing more upward. These get a little flatter, these get a little flatter. So it's kind of like as the spiral spins out, they get bigger and flatter. And so it all kind of just helps pull the viewer in. So it's with eye magnets. We haven't even discussed that today. Yes?
Your spiral, you always started in the center, or do you start
No, you start off with where you want the viewer to go.
where you want?
So what I do is I start with the spiral here, and then I
Okay.
try to find as many lines that I can that point up
Okay,
and go around.
so you start where you think you want to
If you'd like to try coaching for yourself, whether you're a beginner or an advanced painter, please don't hesitate to give me a call at 415-606-9074. Join us on our website at www.thegrandview.org and get more information about our show. There you can download our free book, Everything You Need to Know About Outdoor Painting.